I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons, and that's Tayana.
Yes. Tayana is our new assistant for the podcast. She runs all our technical stuff so that JT can be on camera more often now, which is really fun. Yes, because I know all of you want to just hear his like Scooby-Doo impressions all day long. So.
Raggy.
It's a new talent that we had no idea he had until
Zoink Scoob. I don't know where it came from. Maybe my childhood.
That's the only bit of childhood I've seen come out of you. Everything else is horror movies and blood.
Yeah, I'm like 9 out of 10 with the Scooby, and then I think I'm like a 6 out of 10 on Shaggy. But I'm gonna I'm wearing green more often as I'm doing today. So
yeah, you kind of look like Shaggy a little bit. Remember we were gonna do those Halloween costumes with Argyle, and we bought her that Scooby-Doo costume.
Yeah, we should do that.
She looks like Scrappy-Doo a little bit.
We should do that.
But some of you might be noticing, where's Chris?
We're doing a Q&A and don't have a Chris?
I know, it's really upsetting. Chris is enjoying the fall weather and the fall leaves changing up in New England, which I'm insanely jealous of because I love New England in the fall.
He actually went to Salem, didn't he?
He did. He stayed in the Lizzie Borden house.
Wow.
If you go on his TikTok, he actually did a really funny TikTok where they have add-ons that you can include in your staying in the Lizzie Borden house, obviously like breakfast and stuff like that. But they have like ghost hunting equipment that you can rent.
What? I didn't see this.
He tagged us in it. Well, I commented on it because I thought it was hilarious because of the last part that you can add on. So you can do like ghost hunting equipment, breakfast, all that. You can have a romantic package because what screams romance more than murder?
Yeah.
And then the best part of all is you can rent an axe to be laid on your bed.
What?
Yeah. Right?
No way.
I saw it and I was literally screeching with laughter because it's so funny.
Gosh.
But that makes me want to go to the Lizzie Borden house even more so than I already did.
Yeah.
Because I want to arrive and there be a bloody axe on my bed waiting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. On the dinner menu is like all the meat chopped.
I'm sure.
That would be really great.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it was.
That's so cool. Yeah, so Chris is living his best life up there, and we have good news for all of our patrons. Chris actually did a special interview with a woman named Julie Roundtree, who's a specialist in witch history.
Yes, she is getting her PhD in it. So, she used to live in Savannah, and that's how we knew her, but she moved up there to go teach, be a professor, but also to get her PhD. And she's living in Salem and also living her best witchy life, which is
for
amazing.
sure.
So, yeah, Chris did an exclusive interview that will be only on Patreon. But for those of you who are on the fence about being patrons, maybe our episode with Julie, where she's going to be on this podcast, where we interview her a little bit more thoroughly and more in depth, maybe that will push you guys over to the edge, to the Patreon side.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Patreon always gets the really fun exclusive content. And speaking of patrons, we do have a few new patrons we would like to mention. So thank you to Allison F., Fanny Garcia, Ann Jane, Kelly McClelland, and Caitlin, all for joining our Patreon and becoming Parajunkies. We really appreciate you guys. It helps us out a lot to continue doing what we're doing and also to make even more interesting content like, having Chris go up to Salem and things like that.
Yeah. So become a Parajunkie. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the Q&A. First question. Anne Marie Morales asks, can a spirit who can move or do anything be considered a poltergeist, such as turn on lights, make something fall, etc., or does it need to be more? Good question.
That is a good question. So what you're describing is an intelligent haunting. So intelligent hauntings are the ones that we discussed in a previous episode between intelligent and residual hauntings. Basically, they're going to be ones that are able to move things. They are able to communicate with us because they're choosing actively to stay on this side. And a lot of times when they're turning on lights and pushing objects over, it's them trying to get your attention. The difference with a poltergeist is because they lean more on the malevolent spirit side, where if they're going to move objects, it's more than likely they're going to chuck something at you, or they're going to, try to cause more chaos and harm, versus an intelligent spirit where it's more so they're trying to communicate, or they are just trying to get attention to boost that energy of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. Like poltergeists are more of the, sucking a little girl into a TV type of deal.
Well, yes, to a degree, yes.
And they're usually here.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always questioned why they chose to suck her into a TV in that film, because it's like
it's a white noise.
I get it, but that's not how that works. That's not how it works.
That's how it works in Steven Spielberg land.
Absolutely. Well, Steven Spielberg land is its own universe of sorts. But traditionally with a poltergeist, it is absolutely nothing like how the movie is. It's going to be more on, and here you go, your episodic mention of Bloody Mackenzie.
Yeah.
He is a classic example of a poltergeist. He scratches people, he pushes people, he causes harm to those around him. There's really nothing good about him. So
for sure. We're just going to change the name of this podcast to the Bloody Mackenzie podcast.
Yes. Well, he's a great example of a human that lost all empathy and all humanity, which he had very little to begin with. But he's a great example of what a poltergeist would be versus a demon, which is something that was never alive.
Now, are there poltergeists at Lake Shawnee? Because I know we did the mobile podcast, and we were like, there could be some malevolent spirits there.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't call it a poltergeist. I think there's some cranky spirits at Lake Shawnee. But I wasn't picking up on anything that there's no true signs of anybody actually getting harmed by a spirit at Lake Shawnee.
Yeah.
So and that's totally fair. The spirit might be not super interested in being around humans and stuff. Not all humans are a fan of being around other humans.
Yeah.
So you got to think of spirits in that way, because they were humans at one point. They're going to carry over those same types of attributes even in the afterlife.
Absolutely. And if you want to see an inside look at Lake Shawnee, if you haven't already, it's on our YouTube.
It's very interesting.
We got the entire park to ourselves, which was really, really awesome.
It was. And we got the little boy who drowned in the lake. He was the one that got his arm stuck in one of the drainage pipes, and he drowned, but he is very active, and we got to communicate with him. And there's actually a clip on TikTok, if you haven't seen it yet, that one of our viewers mentioned to us where my glasses move.
Oh my gosh. We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about that.
So
yeah, I don't even know if you know, Tayana. So basically she's there. It's at the end of the TikTok. It's also in the YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's her glasses are always sliding down to the bridge of her nose.
Yeah, because I need to get them tightened.
She's a goober. And so basically, there's this moment, and it's barely noticeable, except one of our TikTok followers pointed it out, and it was like, what? That basically her glasses go from the bridge of her nose, and they pop up
so fast,
so quickly, like the little boy pushed them. It was insane.
Yeah, and it was literally right after I said okay, we're gonna head out. I was telling him hey, we're leaving, and it was almost like he was like, thanks for hanging out. Also,
Yeah.
Fix your glasses, lady.
And that is not a poltergeist.
It's not. No, he was cool.
He was sweet.
He was a sweet kid.
All right, here we go. Next question. Anne Marie Morales asked another one.
She had a lot of really good questions.
Yeah,
I had to pick
it.
a couple of them, and we'll save some for Chris.
Again, use that Q&A feature on TikTok because that is for real. Okay. How do you know if a spirit is being honest about who or what they are? Ooh, that's a toughie.
I mean, okay. So what you really have to do when you're communicating with spirits, and this is referring to like, when you're communing technically, like when you're doing any type of divination or tarot, or if you are using a Ouija board, which I don't recommend doing, but if you're doing so, you have to watch out for certain things. It can still be difficult to decipher if they're being honest. You gotta it really takes time to be able to feel out what I call the vibe of the spirit. You can pick up on their energy usually, and you can usually tell when something is, acting suspicious. But you want to look for things such as, are they trying to get you to do something for them? Are they trying to give you information about the future? Are they, trying to get information out of you? Interesting.
So basically, you can vet if something's malevolent or a demon. There's let's talk about the different ways that you can determine if something is being malevolent towards you.
Yeah, so it's usually if something is trying to get you to do something.
Okay.
Or like how Chris and I have said in the past, spirits like your grandma, like if your grandma's coming back to visit you, more than likely she's not going to use a Ouija board to contact you. But, if your grandma was trying to contact you, she's not going to tell you like, on this day you're going to die, ooh, like things like that. Or like try to give you information of things that are going to happen in your life. That is something a spirit should have no knowledge of, because we as humans are not supposed to know that information. And because they're always active. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, they're always active when we start talking about things like this. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm used to it by now.
But yes. So basically you want to look out for things like that where it's trying to give you information, because that's a trap for, okay, I gave you this, now you have to do this for me.
And things that like call your name, right?
Well, yeah, but like that's a whole different realm. When I think what they're referring to is like when you're communicating with a spirit.
Sure.
If you hear something calling your name, you didn't. It's the basic rules of Appalachia. Just follow those. Have you heard your name called? You didn't. If you saw something in the woods, you didn't. If you see something following you, you didn't. You keep going forward.
Yeah, so all this information is at the visitor center at the edge of Appalachia. So.
Yeah, I know, right? Mm-hmm. No, there's actually a lot of really good books on it, but and that's it. Those kind of rules apply in multiple different cultures. That's just the ones I'm familiar with because that's where my roots come from.
Sure.
So, but those are a good general rule of thumb. If something, it knows your name, if it knows information about you, don't trust it.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So next question, Michelle. Ooh, these are long names. Michelle Mama Inga Calling. Oh, wait, that's Manga. Hold on. Michelle Emma Manga Calling 0. Whew, asks. That's a doozy. What place in Savannah would you say is the most haunted? I am new to the podcast, so if you have mentioned it, I missed it. Love the show. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, and welcome. And what would you say would be the most haunted place in Savannah?
My opinion would be, I mean, there are plenty of houses that are incredibly haunted, but I feel like the most haunted place would be Wright Square. It's a very active square in general. It's got a lot of energy moving through it constantly because it's so central in Savannah. But also, and I have talked about this quite a while ago, so it's good to refresh people on Wright Square because it's a great square to visit. But it was where the gallows were, the original cemetery was, the courthouse, all of those things, the jail. It was all on Wright Square. So anytime you have all that energy in general, it's going to leave a lot of energy behind. It's also where Alice Riley is commonly seen. She's not the only spirit in Wright Square. There are plenty of other ones because the majority of them come from the people who were executed. And a lot of those people who were executed in Wright Square died brutal deaths because oftentimes executions were used as forms of entertainment because, it was the 1800s, obviously. They didn't have TVs, they didn't have things like that. So what did you do? You packed up your kids, packed up a picnic, and you went out to the square to see someone get hanged. So I kid you not, that was literally what they did. The colonial era and the Victorian era, they were morbid people, incredibly morbid. But
have we talked about the St. Julian Street Demon House?
Briefly. Why
don't you give them the rundown of that?
Yeah. So, it's a very complex story to a certain degree, but the house was originally located over off of Bay Street. It is no longer there. It's over on East St. Julian Street off of Warren Square, which I love that it's off of Warren Square. Because,
yeah, right.
But so the house used to be over on Bay Street. It was built in the 1700s for Mr. and Mrs. Hampton Lillibridge. They were from Rhode Island. They were some of the original snowbirds, I guess, because basically they wanted to recreate their house from Rhode Island down here in Savannah so that when they came down for the winters, it was basically like the same house. So they actually didn't live in it for very long because the mister passed away 2 years after it was built. His wife ended up selling it to become a boarding house for sailors. And one of the first reported deaths was a sailor committing suicide by hanging in the upstairs bathroom. Now, that I'm sure there's been other things that have occurred in the house, but there's a large gap from that point to when Jim Williams bought the house. Because Jim Williams bought the house in 1963 because it was absolutely derelict. And if you don't know who Jim Williams is, he is one of the main characters, if not the main character, in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
He's a big part of Savannah.
He's a very big part of Savannah. He was a really awful man, too. Plenty of people who knew Jim Williams are still alive in Savannah, and nobody liked him. So what you read in the book is very accurate. But basically, though, for those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, really all you need to know for the case of this story was that he was a historic preservationist and also a very famous antique dealer here in Savannah. But he bought the house because it was derelict, and he was going to restore it to its once very beautiful state. So they moved the house, and they put it where it is now. And so a few of the contractors that went in there during the survey process of it, two of them were on the main floor. One of them was in the upstairs bathroom. Two on the main floor heard a really loud bang happen, and they go upstairs to the bathroom, and they see their coworker laying on the ground screaming and clawing at the floor uncontrollably. And when they finally got him to come to, he said that he had been possessed by something he couldn't see. And 3 days later, that man died, even though he was very young, and he also had no prior health conditions. Yeah, so it was a very freaky incident, and a lot of people in Savannah thought that it was the entity in the house that really killed that man. Jim Williams heard about it, thought it was absolute hogwash. He was not a person to believe in the paranormal at all. He actually ended up moving into the house after it was restored. He made it for about 7 days. So, if that tells you anything. So he was the one to report that it was a 7-foot tall shadowy figure. It would walk throughout the halls at night, and it would sound like glass was breaking beneath its feet whenever it walked.
I love that part of the story.
And so he would chase it. It would chase him through the halls. It would slam doors in his face. He actually stated that he would sleep with a pistol underneath his pillow in case it tried to attack him in his sleep. And I'm like, well, that showed how much he knew about spirits, because that's not going to do anything for you. But regardless, so eventually he would call in a friend who was a Episcopalian priest who lived in Savannah. And if you're familiar with exorcisms, you will know that Episcopalians are not trained to do them at all. It's not a part of that particular denomination. So he was going to come in and essentially try his best, give it the old Savannah try,
Yeah.
So basically what he ended up doing was not an exorcism, but a house blessing of sorts. And so he thought that was good enough, thought the entity was gone, but you see...
Hold on. One of my favorite parts of the story is the fact that the demon like hid itself for like 3 days.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I jumped ahead, but I love that part because he's like mocking. You know, y'all know how much I love demons and all of that, but you know, it's like he's mocking God.
They always are doing that. Well, everything that demons do are in threes, so you know, they're always going to do
three scratches.
Yeah, exactly. So if you ever do like see, you know, somebody say like, "Oh, I was scratched by a demon," but it's like 5 claw marks, it's not a demon.
Nope.
But regardless, it's always mocking the Holy Trinity. That is just like a very classic sign of a demon. But regardless, pretty much all it did was just lay low for about 3 days. It really didn't do anything. Made everybody believe that it was gone. But now it is so like entrenched in the house, nobody has been able to get rid of it. And the house is actually significantly cheaper. It's still expensive for normal houses, but like it is significantly cheaper than all the other houses around it. So that house sits at about $2 million. And all the other houses around it sit at around $6 million. And it goes back up on the market very often, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
With that house in particular, a lot of people are like, well, how did it get there in the first place? Because like the common thing people love saying is that they're like, well, maybe when it was derelict, some kids broke in and did a Ouija board and they let something in. And I'm like, it's not very likely.
Yeah, like in the show, we talk about the demon being part of the soul.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. My working theory with it is because there is evidence that when they were doing restoration on the house, they found a coffin in the basement with a body still inside of it.
Oh.
And it was a 7-foot long body.
Oh boy.
I'm just saying. So that's the thing. Oftentimes, objects that were owned by somebody who's no longer alive, bodies being present in general, it creates portals of sorts, that thinning of the veil that allows things in. And if it's not properly taken care of, I mean, it's very, very likely that, you know, the entity just kind of crawled its way through and it found a place that it was able to just sink its roots into, essentially.
The house currently on Zillow is 2.3 mil.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so it's there are rumors of them making it into an Airbnb, which I really hope they do because I would love
that would be pretty cool.
I would love to stay in that house because it is a private residence. I mean, like you can walk in front of it, but like, you know, tour groups don't really oogle and ogle in front of it, and obviously you can't go inside the house. And I think the current owners do not even live here, so it's very possible that nobody's going to get inside that house unless they open it up as something like that. But it is a historical home. It does have the marker on it. Now, nobody's been able to do a thorough investigation of the house, obviously, because it's always been a private residence. But maybe one day, if they do open it up in that way, we'll get some more information on it. Because otherwise, it's kind of the standing folk tale of sorts of the house, because that's all we can get from it is Absolutely. But I will say the Georgia Historical Society, and you can look it up on their website, they have a document that I love, and I think we used to have it we did have it printed out. I don't know if we still have it, but it literally says in one of these like very like academic type documents where they're like detailing the house, and it says a haunted house on it.
No way.
It does. We used to have it hanging up on the wall in the Old Bay. Remember when remember when we had that wall of information on the stories and stuff?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did thorough investigation in the history of this house and whatnot, and even the Georgia Historical Society acknowledges it as a haunted house.
Look at that.
So,
all right. So let's go on to the next question, because I know you can literally talk about the St. Julian Street Demon House.
It's one of my favorite houses.
The time. Yep. And just you know, again, it is a private residence, so if you do go check it out, just check it out. Just be
respectful.
Yeah, just be respectful and all of that. All right, here we go. Angel Dewata asks, what is God's role in the paranormal? Does he allow spirits to roam around the earth, allow loved ones who have passed to visit the earth? I'll ask him when I die?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
That's a hard question to answer.
It's a good question.
No, it's an excellent question, and it's healthy to be curious about sorts of things like that, especially if you're a religious person. But it's a hard question to answer because obviously I have not died. I don't know how that actually works. The best answer I can give you is off of what I kind of know about spirits and the way that, there is this area where spirits can choose to not cross over. So usually you find that with your spirits that have unfinished business, your spirits that died quickly and traumatically, and they don't know that they're dead yet, and they don't know how to cross over. Some spirits, especially children, don't know how to cross over. So I feel like that is not under the control of a higher power. I feel like that is like a conscious choice your soul has to make to cross over.
Yeah.
Otherwise, loved ones, I think there is a bit of free will.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Because that would be very ridiculous, in my opinion, of any kind of higher power that you believe in to not allow people to have free will to visit when they please.
I think that, just as a Christian, that our Christian God is a kind God and will, let spirits visit their family members, free will. I completely agree with that.
I mean, if you look at all world religions, most of them are not, they're gods or deities. They are not dictators. They don't, they guide you and they set rules of what they want. But none of them are restricting your free will ever. Yeah. And so why would that translate over into the afterlife? You see what I mean? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's my best guess off of just a solely looking at it from the paranormal side of things. But like I said, I've never died. I don't know what's going to happen truly on the other side.
But I can see when Madison dies in 60, 70 years. She's gonna make it past 100 easy. And 60, 70 years. Or that'd be 80 years because you're 24. I don't know. I don't do math. Anyway, I could see her totally come back and answering all these questions for all y'all old people. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'll be do not contact me through a Ouija board. I will not answer. Do not commune with me through that.
All right.
But by that point, I swear we're gonna have the most insane type of paranormal investigation tools and stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild.
We're gonna have a cell phone and be doop, doop, doop. Hey, Grandma, how's heaven?
Absolutely. All right, next question. Bridget Parkin asks, what is your opinion on sleep paralysis and how it connects to the paranormal world? Hags.
So we are
big fan of hags. Yeah. We've talked about them multiple times in the past on past episodes, and Maddie, just for I'm sure I think the majority of our listeners have heard us talk about hags plenty, but I would say give a minute or two. Yeah, just a brief rundown of what the hag is and the fact that y'all should Google the Gullah Geechee culture and read all about it because it's super important to the Southeast and just the United States in general.
Yeah, or if you are in Savannah, go to Pembroke. It's
Pinpoint.
Pinpoint, that's it. Not Pembroke.
I call it Pembroke too. I'm crazy too.
But anyways, go to Pinpoint, and they have a excellent Gullah Geechee heritage museum. Definitely worth visiting just to learn about the culture.
And then also there's one up at the South Carolina coast for all the South Carolinians. Yep. Where's that?
It's oh gosh,
it's some gardens.
We can put it in the comments or something like that if you guys are interested, or just message us if you're on Patreon and we'll find it for you. But
hags.
But regardless, so hags essentially are a sleep paralysis demon of sorts. They're kind of in the level of a ghoul. So essentially what they do is they mount your chest when you're sleeping and suck the energy out of you that you had just gained from sleeping. And they do this every single night until you're driven into insanity. And they do some various other creepy things like peeling off their skin and hanging it on your front door, which is just horrifying.
It's that's how they show domination.
Yeah, basically they're claiming you of sorts. And so
I would like to add that I sleep on my side. I'm a side sleeper because I believe that hags can't roll you over. I'm not kidding.
Well, so
do I not sleep on my side?
You do. And so actually that's interesting because it comes, so hags are in the same lore as succubuses. So succubuses have always been historically what you would consider something that would hurt you in your sleep.
Yeah.
They're like the OG sleep paralysis
Are
demon.
succubuses hot? Are those the ones that are hot?
Hot?
Like sexy?
Oh, no.
Why do I think that then?
I mean, maybe like in some horror movie they made a succubus sexy, but I don't know.
I'm going to Google it.
But yeah, so succubuses are the original sleep paralysis demon of sorts.
No, that's definitely not hot. You're right.
So, but that is the thing, is that's why if you look.
She's kind of cute.
Oh my God. Anyways, that's why when you.
Wait a minute. A female demon believed to have sexual intercourse with a sleeping man.
Yeah, sexual intercourse, not to be sexy. It's like basically
heard.
It's basically like non-consensual.
Yeah,
a type of intercourse. But anyways, so that is if you look at succubus lore though, it is said that they can't roll you onto your back. That's why it's said to sleep on your stomach or sleep on your side. I
ain't never been ridden by a hag, and I'm gonna tell you right now, it ain't gonna happen, because every time I even wake up and I'm like on my back, I immediately shift over to my side.
I ward our rooms so heavily against anything like that.
I trust her with that type of stuff.
But
she protect me.
I do. But yeah, it stems from succubus, but it's kind of diverted into all these different subcategories from different cultures. There are so many different versions of the hag. That's just the one we're the most familiar with because that's very commonly spoken about in our region.
But it's also like the main one though, because they actually brought it from West Africa.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's
But they're like, even like in East Africa with the Popabawa that we talked about.
Yep.
You know, it's a very similar type of entity, just has some little difference. Oh no. Oh gosh, he's gonna get exiled here soon. But
I was exiled in the Popabawa episode for doing that
many times. But yeah, and like there are some even within Asian cultures, all sorts of different things. Yeah. So honestly, sleep paralysis goes hand in hand with the paranormal. Your brother has had sleep paralysis a million times at this point.
Yeah.
And I find that like it's interesting that it happens to a lot of people who are deeply religious. So Kiwan is very religious.
He leaves a Bible and cross on his bed every morning.
Because
made bed.
Yeah, he does. But he would always talk about how, you know, the only thing that would make it stop was if he screamed out Jesus Christ's name. Yep, he did say that. And I've read in many of the comments on our like various TikToks and stuff, people saying the same thing. Yeah. So it's a very interesting concept. And I feel like because Kiwan does have West African heritage, he's more likely to have a hag versus...
Yeah, his ancestry said the majority of his ancestry comes from Benin and Togo.
Yeah. So it's so he's more than likely getting a hag, but you know, versus some other people have slightly different variations and they might be experiencing something of the same nature, but you know, just different culture, because demons all relate to whatever spiritual culture or religion that they personally subscribe to, and they'll usually go for people who subscribe for the same thing.
Gotcha. All right, and I'm going to skip down to a question. We'll come back to a couple others, but I want to skip just because we were talking about succubuses and all of that. Do spirits have the ability to have romantic relationships with a living person? Oh, I read that someone married a spirit. Can spirits have intercourse? Taylor and Luke asked that.
Oh my God, I hate when people say that they have relationships with entities. There was a trend going around on TikTok for a little while in witch talk, and I'll tell you why. It was because a lot of people were saying that they were having relationships with Hades, or they were having relationships with, and I'm like, first off, Hades and Persephone would never allow that to happen, but regardless.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they were saying that they were having sexual relationships with their deities, and like it's been a thing.
That's a weird flex.
It's a very weird flex, and that is not ever the case. So here's the thing: is if you're actually dealing with a spirit, like someone who died, or you're dealing with a deity, they're not going to form a relationship with you in that way, because it's just not a thing. It is not possible. It is severely out of bounds for any kind of spirit to have that type of relationship with a human.
Okay.
Now, they can form bonds with you in the way that, like, you have almost like a friendship, but most of the time they're there to be your guardians, or they're there to be yes. What would you like to say?
I have a question. I have a question for you, ma'am. Since you don't believe that should happen at all, what if a married couple who love each other, so much, what if one dies and one is alive and the other, wouldn't it be kind of romantic? Like,
no.
What?
That's not a thing.
Yes, it is.
No, you can't have intercourse in the afterlife. But
no, that's not what I meant about the intercourse thing. I meant just staying married to the spirit.
Well, sure. I mean, okay, so like if you're going off of that, like of course, they're still going to have that bond to you where they want to like show their love in some ways, but they're not going to be out here, like laying in your bed, or they're not going to be like touching you in that way. That's just simply not a thing. And like the woman that I think if I'm remembering the same woman that you're talking about, I believe she said she was like she was married to like 100-year-old spirit or something like that. That was I truly believe that was some kind of like publicity stunt of sorts, because it's just not a thing. It really isn't.
Or maybe she just likes them seasoned.
I mean, like, so here's the thing is like, Chris talked about the old lady that had the peeping Tom spirit. Yeah. That's okay, like in the way that they're allowed to do things like that. Sure. But they can't form those types of intimate bonds with you.
Gotcha.
It's just that's something reserved for the living,
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. First, y'all.
Please don't have intercourse with ghosts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're having a succubus.
Although, you might be able to last forever. All right. Here we go.
Oh, my God. You're going to have to cut that out. Oh, God.
I'm not going to. All right. Here we go. I'm going down to Savannah. Is it okay to leave offerings for the spirits? I hope like one nice ghost follows me home. Aaron Bailey, 2002.
Absolutely. Please leave offerings for spirits. They love it.
What kind of offerings would you leave to a Savannah spirit?
Okay. Well, so here's the thing is what I was going to actually mention is make sure if you're leaving an offering at a grave, you do something within the realm of their religion or within their ethnicity. Because like if you're visiting a Jewish spirit, you would want to leave like rocks or something on the headstone. But if you're visiting, a Catholic spirit, you may want to leave something different. So just make sure
like a rosary or like
you can leave a rosary. Okay. Flowers are great. Herbs are always great for any spirit.
Okay. What about a atheist spirit?
Honestly, in general, my kind of rule of thumb is I usually leave coins as offering.
Yeah, she literally. She'll bring like a bunch of coins when we're going to visit a graveyard, and she just like, she just like puts one down here, puts one down there. You can have this one. This one's really nice and shiny. And I'm
usually what I offer, whenever I do offerings, I also make sure if it's in a cemetery, leave an offering for the guardian spirit of the cemetery. So that's usually going to be the headstone that is closest to the entrance or the exit of the cemetery. Usually leave something like that just as a sign of respect of like, I'm coming in here and I'm respecting the cemetery. I'm not going to come in here and litter and like do disrespectful things.
Absolutely.
So it's usually a good thing to do that. But also please feel free to like leave, things that mean something to you. So, you can leave crystals, you can leave, I've seen people leave like little trinkets or something. People leave seashells. Whatever you connect with is showing that like this is me showing you respect, essentially. So just kind of whatever you're feeling connected to. But if you do know you're going into specifically a Jewish cemetery, specifically a Catholic cemetery or a Protestant cemetery, just like look into a little bit further of like what they would particularly want.
Sure.
But if you're not familiar with what that person might have been. It's always nice to leave something that you feel connected to.
For sure. Or you could go to a Nazi grave site and leave something completely different.
Oh God, jeez. Yeah, I mean, we won't go into that, but yes, that is true.
That's what I'd leave.
But yeah, Savannah spirits though, they're sweet. They're sweet spirits for the most part.
For sure. All right. Taylor and Luke asks, how come dinosaurs aren't haunting the earth? We talk about them all the time, but I've never heard a dino ghost story.
I love this question, actually. I don't think anybody has ever asked me this.
That's wild.
So, okay, here's my working theory of it. Is basically it's very uncommon to see a animal spirit in a ghostly form. You get them every once in a while, but usually it's like a dog that was like super well connected to like a family, and it's usually a residual spirit of it. But also, I think it's because of the fact that humans weren't super like around when the dinosaurs were here. So we don't have our lasting impressions that would have left behind that residual energy.
I have a hot take.
Go for your hot take.
Yes. The Taylor and Luke.
I like the way your brain works, though.
Yeah, I do. I really do. You made me just think of something. So we have all these cryptids, right? We have all these cryptids at Loch Ness. We have the Bigfoot. We have all of these things that we think we see, but we never can get a clear photo of. We can never prove that they exist. It makes me think, could those be prehistoric, like shadow dinosaurs?
Interesting. I like that idea. I mean, it is called cryptid zoology. So, I mean, interesting. No, that's an interesting concept. It's hard to tell. I think maybe, it's maybe spirits are just like predisposed to not be left behind as an animal.
Maybe Mothman's a pterodactyl spirit.
That would be really cool.
That would be really cool.
I love Mothman. I'm probably going to be Mothman for Halloween. So, yeah.
Yeah. She's like, JT, should I be sexy Mothman? I'm like,
I am going to be sexy Mothman.
I'm like, sure, babe, whatever you want to do.
It's going to be lit. Patreon will see it first.
All right, here we go. Tier.Archimus asks, I think they've asked a question before.
They have, yes.
What allows a ghost to have a certain amount of square footage? What dictates that it can only come so far when not attached to someone? #ghost heroine. I will tell you right now, these questions are awesome.
Y'all always come through with like the heat on the questions, and I love it. So for this question,
that's a you question though, babe. I don't
know.
No,
absolutely. Okay, so here's the thing. You got to remember with spirits is they were alive at a time where your building that you're seeing the spirit is probably looking totally different to what it looked like when they were alive. So that's why oftentimes you see spirits where they have, where it looks like they're walking in the floor because the floor was lower at one point, or they walk through walls because those walls were not there at that point.
Okay.
A lot of times they're maneuvering through a space with how it looked when they died or when their impression was left behind. So I don't think it's necessarily like a set rule in the spirit world where like, okay, Jim Bob, you get 500 square feet, go ahead. You know, it's like, I don't think it's like that.
I think they don't want to leave.
Yeah,
they're familiar with it.
Well, of course, anytime there's an intelligent spirit, it's always that they don't want to leave. That's why they're there. So, it's, and the residual haunting is the same way. Obviously, the residual haunting is not actively thinking.
Sure.
They're just existing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's more so why we see them in certain areas. And then if something is attached to a person, that's when it's able to be a bit more transient.
Absolutely.
But then there's also the case of the transient spirits. That's, like a whole different, separate realm. So...
All right. We got the last question.
Woohoo.
Megan Jones, and it's not Chris's wife.
I don't think we've ever mentioned, but yeah, that's literally Chris's wife's name.
It's spelled different.
Yeah, it is spelled different, I'm sure.
All right. Is there any ghost or paranormal places you will not go out Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any ghost or paranormal places you will not go to out of fear? Also, wanted to say, love the work you guys do. My new favorite podcast. Thank you so much.
Aw,
Yeah,
that's so
you're awesome. I really appreciate that, and thank you
you.
for all our listeners and their support.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to us. This is
Yeah.
like my special interest, so it's just fun to
Absolutely.
talk about.
You guys are the best.
Yes.
So yeah, is there any ghost or paranormal places you will not go to out of fear? For me, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We have that thing on Patreon. Like if we reach a certain amount of patrons, like it's like a couple thousand, like we're gonna go to one of the most haunted places in the world. I think we said the Paris Catacombs. Aokigahara Forest, and then what was the other one?
Maybe like Gatlinburg or something like that.
Yeah, it was
or
like
not Gatlinburg, Gettysburg.
Gettysburg.
But
I like to go to Gatlinburg too, though.
yeah.
All right.
But no, I don't think so. I have enough faith in my abilities to protect myself against things that I just it doesn't scare me to go to these places, because I'm like, the way I see it is you already have the upper hand of being alive. They're already at a disadvantage because they have to muster up a certain amount of energy to even do anything. So
that's interesting, babe.
Yeah, so they're already a little less scary to me. Also, I see them very often anyways. So like regular ghosts don't really freak me out. Demons, if you're prepared for them and you know what you're dealing with, it's.
I will say, demons like ghosts don't really freak me out. Obviously, they do something startling, I'm gonna jump, but whatever. Well, and also, since we started this podcast, I have seen things and heard things so much
we've
freaking
opened
more.
Up JT's perception.
I'm like, dang it. I'm no longer like that guy who's like, well, I'm just not sensitive to it.
Well, yeah, once you open that door, it doesn't close.
Yeah, like yesterday, just quick story time. Just like, we were filming at a 127 Abercorn, which is this like building downtown. It's where the Black Chamber of Commerce is. Shout out to them. And it is a pretty old building, and I was rounding the corner with some equipment because we just got finished with the film shoot, and I'm not kidding, like I called corner. I had like a case in my hand, like a camera case in my hand. I called corner because I could have sworn Debria, my first AC, I could have sworn she was coming back up the stairs and around that corner. I didn't want to run into her. So I go corner, and I go around the corner, nothing. And it was this shadow that just passed in front of, like, when you're rounding a corner and you start to look around the corner, that's where the shadow was right around the corner. I mean, it was a thick shadow, like someone was right in front of a light. It wasn't a flicker. I know it wasn't a flicker, and it went kind of like up the wall, and they had white walls. And so I went around the corner, and I'm like, why is Debria not there? And then I'm like, Debria, and she's downstairs, and she goes, yeah? And I'm like, that was a ghost. Like, that was a freaking ghost. And I'm like, why am I starting to see him now?
Because that's what happens when you start to become, honestly.
What happens when you're married to Madison Ray Timmons?
It's true. I bring ghosts to people. I really do.
Tayana, you're going to start seeing ghosts soon because you know this lady.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, if you spend a lot of time around me, you do start to pick up on things. I think Kristen my best friend Kristen, she's been on the podcast, but like she started seeing things more often because of me, and I'm like, it's fine, you're fine. Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah. So forgot the question. I was just so into that story.
We were talking.
Oh yeah, the places we wouldn't visit. So what my point was, ghosts don't scare me. Demons, they frighten me, but my faith is so strong that they ain't getting in this. There's just no way. It'd be such a challenge to try to get into this and
very hard-headed. So
stubborn as a mule.
But like, that's the thing is, like, I never go into a haunted location without having some type of like ward on me. I always have some type of ward on me, whether JT laughs because I keep crystals in my bra. Fun fact.
Always.
So things like that, and then I do Celtic like braids in my hair and stuff and all sorts of stuff. I I'm always at least a little bit warded. So it's
always. Well, cool. All right. Well, that was a fun episode.
Yeah.
And Chris, don't worry, Chris will be back in the next couple.
And if we didn't get to your question, by the way, some of them were being saved for when Chris comes back.
Yep. We shoot those this Sunday. He gets back this Saturday. We shoot those this Sunday. So all of next week's episode will have one of your favorite ghost people.
Yeah.
Ghost experts.
Yeah, and he'll be nice and relaxed from all his fall exploration.
Absolutely. But go ahead and check us out on Patreon. Become a Parajunkie. We'd love to have you. We love our patrons. They're just amazing, and we're starting to really build like a
community.
A community, and that's really exciting, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And especially if you want to have like basically access to JT and Chris and I all the time. Patreon's a great way to do it. We are constantly messaging with our Parajunkies and whatnot, talking about their experiences.
For sure. So. We've had Parajunkies, send us just questions that they want answered, in a private setting, where we don't talk about it on the podcast. And we've been talking back and forth. We honestly love it. We really enjoy it. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. We're done.
All right. Well, if you haven't already, follow us on TikTok at the Savannah Underground. Also, our Patreon link is patreon.com/Savannah Underground. So that's where you can find us. But with that being said, my name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And stay spooky, y'all.